He was told he would never walk properly. Doctors warned his parents he might not survive childhood. And yet, this same boy would grow up to redefine what the human body, and the human will, could do. This is the story of Bruce Lee. On November 27, 1940, in San Francisco's Chinatown, a baby boy was born to a touring Chinese opera troupe. His father, Li Hoi-chen, was a well-known performer, touring the United States with a Cantonese opera company. In the Chinese zodiac, it was the year of the dragon, and at the hour of the dragon, so the nurses, half joking, gave the baby an English name, Bruce, but fate had already marked him. Within months, his family returned to Hong Kong, a city under Japanese occupation, then later under British rule, a place caught between East and West. It was the perfect, chaotic birthplace for a boy who would spend his life refusing to be defined by either side. Bruce grew up small, skinny, and sickly. He needed glasses. He was bullied. His mother later said he was so frail as an infant that they nicknamed him Siphon, Small Phoenix, a girl's name, believed to confuse evil spirits who might try to take him away. Despite his fragile start, Bruce had energy that seemed impossible to contain. As a child actor, he appeared in nearly 20 Hong Kong films before he was even a teenager, often playing street kids and troublemakers, roles that weren't far from his real life. No one looking at that child could have imagined what he would become. By his teenage years, Bruce was a different kind of trouble. Quick-tempered, restless, and proud, he ran with street gangs in Kowloon and got into fights constantly, fights he often lost. So at 13, searching for a way to defend himself, he found a teacher, the legendary Wing Chun master, Ip Man. Under Ip Man, Bruce didn't just learn how to throw a punch. He learned the philosophy behind it, economy of motion, redirection of force, using an opponent's energy against them. It would become the seed of everything he later created. He trained for years, often staying behind after class to ask questions other students were too intimidated to ask. But Hong Kong was getting dangerous for him. After one fight too many, some say involving the son of a powerful local figure, his parents made a decision that would change his life forever. They sent him to America. Alone. 18 years old. $3 in his pocket. In 1959, Bruce Lee landed in San Francisco, then moved to Seattle, where he worked as a dishwasher in a relative's restaurant while finishing high school. He enrolled at the University of Washington, studying philosophy, a subject that would shape his martial arts as much as any physical training ever did. He devoured the works of thinkers from East and West alike, looking for ideas about balance, change, and the nature of conflict that he could apply directly to combat. It was also in Seattle that Bruce met a young woman named Linda Emery, a fellow student who would later become his wife. To make money, he started teaching what he knew, Chinese martial arts, to a small group of students. This was almost unheard of. At the time, many traditional masters refused to teach Chinese arts to non-Chinese students. Bruce didn't care about that tradition. He believed martial arts belonged to anyone willing to learn, regardless of background. This open-door philosophy made him enemies within the traditional Chinese martial arts community, and it would soon be tested in the most dramatic way possible. According to legend, retold many times, with details that shift depending on who's telling it, a group of martial arts masters in San Francisco's Chinatown challenged Bruce. He was, in their eyes, teaching outsiders secrets that weren't his to give away. The challenge: if Bruce lost, he had to stop teaching non-Chinese students. If he won, he could teach whoever he wanted. The fight reportedly lasted only a few minutes. Bruce won. But he wasn't satisfied with how he'd performed. He felt sloppy, out of breath, inefficient, like his technique had failed him even in victory. So he did something most fighters never do after a victory. He went home and tore his own technique apart. That fight became the spark for Bruce's life's work. He became obsessed with efficiency, stripping away anything ornamental, anything that didn't directly serve speed, power, or adaptability. He started to view rigid martial arts styles almost as cages, beautiful traditions, but limiting ones. He studied fencing, boxing, wrestling, philosophy, even physics. He filled notebooks with diagrams of muscle mechanics and force, treating his own body like a laboratory. He trained obsessively, at one point developing what's now famous as the 1-inch punch, capable of knocking a much larger man backward from almost no distance at all, a feat that left witnesses stunned because it seemed to defy how punching power was supposed to work. Out of all this study came his own martial art, Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. Its core idea was radical for its time: don't trap yourself inside one style's rules. Take what works. Discard what doesn't. Adapt constantly. It wasn't really meant to be a fixed style at all, it was a philosophy of constant evolution. He summarized it in a phrase that would outlive him by decades: be like water. Water could flow, or it could crash. It had no fixed shape, yet it could carve through stone given enough time. Bruce's skill eventually caught Hollywood's eye. He landed the role of Kato in the TV series The Green Hornet in 1966, fast, sharp, magnetic on screen. Even in a supporting role, audiences and fellow actors could tell he moved differently than anyone they had seen before, his speed almost too quick for the camera to fully capture. But Hollywood in the 1960s wasn't ready for an Asian leading man. Bruce pitched a TV show of his own, the story of a wandering martial artist in the Old West. Studios loved the idea. They just didn't want him playing the lead. The show was made anyway, as Kung Fu, starring a non-Asian actor in the role Bruce had created. It was one of the most painful rejections of his career, a clear sign of how the industry viewed him: talented, but not marketable enough to lead. Frustrated, Bruce made a decision few people expected. He packed his bags and went back to Hong Kong, not to give up, but to build his own opportunity from scratch, in an industry that might actually let him lead. In Hong Kong, Bruce signed with a small studio and made The Big Boss in 1971. It was a sensation, breaking box office records across Asia and turning Bruce into an overnight sensation in a region that had been starving for a homegrown action hero. Then came Fist of Fury, then The Way of the Dragon, where Bruce didn't just star, he wrote and directed, taking near total creative control of his own image for the first time in his career. Audiences had never seen anything like him. The speed. The intensity. The way he moved like he was barely touching the ground. Bruce wasn't acting like a fighter, he genuinely was one, and it showed in every frame, in every flick of his wrist, every shift of his stance. By 1973, Hollywood, the same industry that once shut its doors, came calling again. This time, they gave him the lead. Enter the Dragon became the film that introduced Bruce Lee, and martial arts cinema itself, to the entire world. It was a co-production between Hong Kong and the United States, designed specifically to launch him into global stardom. He had done what seemed impossible. A skinny, bullied kid from Hong Kong had become a global icon, on his own terms, by refusing every door that was closed in front of him. He would never see the movie's premiere. On July 20, 1973, just weeks before Enter the Dragon was released, Bruce Lee died in Hong Kong at the age of 32. The official cause was a reaction to medication that caused brain swelling. The suddenness of it, a man at the absolute peak of physical condition, gone almost overnight, shocked the world and fueled decades of rumors and conspiracy theories that persist to this day, from claims of poisoning to talk of an ancient curse following the family. Thousands lined the streets of Hong Kong for his funeral, fans and strangers weeping openly for a man they had only ever seen on screen. He was buried in Seattle, the city where his American journey had begun, the city where a broke 18-year-old immigrant had once washed dishes to survive. Bruce Lee never got to see how far his influence would travel. Modern mixed martial arts, the idea of blending striking, grappling, and adapting to any opponent instead of committing to one rigid style, is, at its philosophical root, exactly what he proposed decades before it became mainstream. Fighters and trainers across the world still reference his ideas, often without even realizing where they originated. Action cinema, the way fight scenes are shot, choreographed, and filmed with real impact and rhythm, the respect martial arts receives as a legitimate art form rather than just spectacle, almost all of it carries his fingerprints, whether modern audiences recognize his name or not. He lived only 32 years. But in that time, he tore down doors that had been locked for generations, doors built from racism, tradition, and low expectations, and he left behind not just movies, but a way of thinking, about effort, about identity, about refusing to be confined by anyone else's expectations of who you're allowed to become. Be water, my friend.